Okay, it's 11 o'clock. Let me get started on today's topic. Today I'm talking about the keys to longevity. Let me share my screen. Okay, I'm talking about the keys to longevity. I recently discovered the work of Dr. Peter Attia. Okay, Attia is spelled A-T-T-I-A. Now, Peter Attia is a Canadian-American author, physician. So he's a doctor and a researcher known for his work in longevity medicine. He received his medical degree from Stanford University School of Medicine, trained for 5 years at the Johns Hopkins Hospital in General Surgery, and also spent 2 years at the National Institutes of Health as a surgical oncology fellow at the National Cancer Institute. So, broad base of experience. And he's the founder of Early Medical, which is a medical practice that applies the principles of Medicine 3.0 to patients with the goal of lengthening their lifespan and simultaneously improving their health span, or what we in New Skin call a youth span. Okay, health span and youth span, same thing. Now, what is Medicine 3.0? Well, Medicine 3.0 emphasizes proactive and personalized healthcare, focusing on preventing chronic diseases rather than treating them after they occur. So it integrates cutting-edge technologies such as genomics, data-driven tools to optimize longevity and health span. This approach shifts from reactive to preventive and precision medicine. Singapore has adopted a preventive healthcare approach since 1983, with the Healthy Lifestyle Campaign. And in 2020, the Healthier SG strategy was introduced to shift the healthcare system towards preventive care. And those of you who listened to Jeff's Live Young talk, he shares the Singapore initiative to have a preventive healthcare strategy. Now, one of Peter Attia's earlier podcasts I saw was with a gentleman called Chris Williamson, and it was entitled "The Most Important Habits to Slow Down and Aging." That podcast was 2 hours 40 minutes long, and he goes into the keys or the pillars that affect longevity, and he goes into it with a lot of detail. Okay. So for us, we know we've been in the aging industry, we know we have to eat well and we have to exercise, but it's very general. This one is specific. Okay. And this longevity checklist is like our wheel of life when we set goals. Okay, our wheel of life is a checklist of how to succeed in life, how to have a wholesome life, balanced life. And this longevity checklist is a checklist of key areas in health. Now, Peter Attia also wrote this book, Outlive, The Science and Art of Longevity. Okay. It's 400 pages long. In Motivational Monday 204, we're on 206 now, I shared what Stanford University neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman had to say about sustaining growth of high performance. So that was Andrew Huberman talking about high performance for entrepreneurs. And this is what he says about this book, Outlive. Okay. Finally, there is a modern, thorough, clear, and actionable manual on how to maximize our immediate and long-term health. Firmly grounded in data and real-life conditions, Outlive makes obvious which actions we all need to take, and just as important, what all we need to pay attention to in order to live a long, vital life. As the most accurate and comprehensive health guide published to date, Outlive is not just informative, it is important. Okay, so that's an endorsement by Andrew Huberman, the Stanford PhD scientist. Hey, 400 pages, very, very long, but you're very fortunate because I found this video by a guy called Nathan Lozeron, who created this channel called The Productivity Game. So Nathan Lozeron is doing what I'm doing, summarizing key ideas. But what he does is he does a one-page PDF summaries of these books. Okay? And so he summarizes this book, Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia, in less than 10 minutes. Okay? And in it, he gives us a quick checklist for longevity. So I want to play this this for you today in it's about 10 minutes. Okay. So this was the article I saw, 2 hours 40 minutes. Today we have this 10-minute summary by Nathan Lozeron.
I recently read Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia. Life is like a voyage on the Arctic Ocean. The longer we live, the more likely we are to encounter icebergs. These icebergs represent the 4 diseases of aging: cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and metabolic disease. If we live long enough, we are bound to encounter one of these. The goal is to avoid them as long as possible, so we can cruise into our 10th decade and still do the things we enjoy doing. We don't want to be like a passenger on the Titanic, unknowingly headed towards an iceberg that will cut our journey short in the 5th or 6th decade of our lives, or force us to spend our final decade with a compromised ship that is slowly sinking. Dr. Peter Attia has written Outlive to help us identify the icebergs ahead and course correct. Rather than being a passenger on the Titanic, we can captain our ship and use radar to steer clear of the 4 diseases of aging as long as possible. The best long-range radar we can install on our ships to detect icebergs relies on one calculation: insulin resistance. Attia says, studies have found that insulin resistance itself is associated with huge increases in one's risk of cancer, up to 12-fold, Alzheimer's disease, 5-fold, and death from cardiovascular disease, almost 6-fold. In a state of insulin resistance, cancer cells proliferate, brain cells don't get the fuel they need, which leads to Alzheimer's, and our bodies get more inflamed, which accelerates heart disease. If we can avoid insulin resistance and the metabolic disease that arises from insulin resistance, we can avoid most icebergs en route to our 10th decade of life. So what is insulin resistance? Well, the body must maintain roughly 1 teaspoon of glucose in the blood at all times. When our blood glucose rises after a meal, our body produces insulin to push the excess glucose into cells. In a healthy body, insulin is used to push glucose into muscle cells and fat cells under the skin, called subcutaneous fat. Think of a cell like a balloon and glucose as air. Insulin's job is to help inflate the balloon. However, as the balloon inflates, it gets harder and harder to push air in. So, the body produces more insulin. Eventually, no matter how much insulin is present, muscle cells and subcutaneous fat cells won't accept any more glucose. With high insulin and high glucose levels in the blood, the body has entered an insulin-resistant state. In a state of insulin resistance, any excess calories get converted into fat and jammed into places no human should have fat, like in the liver, between muscle fibers, like a marbled steak, and between organs, in the midsection. This is called visceral fat, and it's highly inflammatory. Attia likens this fat spillover to a tub overflowing with water and getting into the vents, floorboards, and carpets and destroying the house. As fat spills over into muscles and organs, insulin resistance worsens, causing more fat to accumulate in muscles and organs. It's a vicious cycle. We can test to see if we are in an insulin-resistant state by measuring our blood glucose after consuming a sugary drink like a Coca-Cola. If, after an hour, glucose continues to rise, we are insulin-resistant, and we are headed towards an iceberg in the not-too-distant future, unless we change course and alter our lifestyle. Now, you may assume, as I did, that changing one's diet is the best way to change course and avoid hitting an iceberg. But it's not. The best tool we have to avoid insulin resistance and prolong our lives is physical exercise. The title of Attia's chapter on exercise is The Most Powerful Longevity Drug. In that chapter, he says, more than any other tactical domain we discuss in this book, exercise has the greatest power to determine how you will live out the rest of your life. Going from 0 weekly exercise to just 90 minutes per week can reduce your risk of dying from all causes by 14%. It's very hard to find a drug that can do that. With the right exercise program, we can train our muscle cells to absorb more glucose and use fat as fuel to keep any fat spillover in check. Going back to that balloon metaphor, we can use exercise to increase the size and flexibility of our balloon cells. Now, the ultimate longevity exercise program includes 3 types of training: Zone 2 training, VO2 max training, and strength training. Most people miss these 3 forms of training because they either don't exercise, which is 77% of Americans, or exercise in the gray zone between Zone 2 and VO2 max training, and think strength training is just for athletes and bodybuilders. Zone 2 training involves any aerobic exercise on a stationary bike, treadmill, rower, or outside you can sustain while barely being able to hold a conversation with someone. A Zone 2 workout should feel almost hard and without any muscle burn. The longer you can sustain a Zone 2 workout, the more the mitochondria in your muscle cells, the power plants of the cell, learn to use fat as fuel. Next, VO2 max training. If Zone 2 training feels almost hard, then VO2 max training feels very hard. During VO2 max training, you do an aerobic exercise close to your all-out maximum for 4 minutes, then go easy for 4 minutes, and repeat this 4 times. You will feel like you're dying during a VO2 max training session, but it's worth it. Studies show that people who increase their VO2 max from below average in their age group to above average experience a 50% reduction in all-cause mortality. Attia says, VO2 max is perhaps the single most powerful marker for longevity. Next up, strength training. Strength training vastly improves metabolic health because it produces more lean muscle mass that soaks up excess glucose like a sponge. A 10-year study of 4,500 subjects over 50 found that those with low muscle mass and low muscle strength were 3 times more likely to die early. Attia says, I think of strength training as a form of retirement saving. Just as we want to retire with enough money saved up to sustain us for the rest of our lives, we want to reach older age with enough of a reserve of muscle to protect us from injury and allow us to continue to pursue the activities that we enjoy. Embrace the 3 forms of training by setting 3 weekly targets. Set a Zone 2 target of 45 minutes, 4 days a week. You can use this time to catch up on your favorite TV show while on a stationary bike or treadmill or rower. Set a VO2 max target of 1 day a week, going nearly all out for 4 minutes, then going easy for 4 minutes, and repeating this 4 times. Then, once a year, take a VO2 max test with a medical professional. Just Google VO2 max test near me, and strive to get in the top 5% of your age group. And set a strength training target to lift heavy weights 3 times a week with a focus on grip strength, exercises like the farmer's carry, carrying 2 heavy objects in your hands, and hip hinging exercises, which are exercises that involve bending at the hip without bending the spine, like doing deadlifts, squats, or step-ups on a large box. Your goal is to be able to do a farmer's carry, walking around a room for 1 minute while holding half your weight in both hands. To ensure we don't lose any lean muscle that we gain from strength training, we should consume enough protein to match our weight in grams. For example, I weigh 195 pounds, so I need to consume 195 grams of protein every day. However, I must space out my protein intake so I do not consume more than 25% of my daily protein in a single sitting, because excess protein gets turned into glucose by the liver. Therefore, I aim to eat roughly 50 grams of protein 4 times a day, around 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 3 p.m., and 6 p.m. These protein meals either include 2 chicken breasts, an 8-ounce steak, an 8-ounce piece of fish, or a whey protein shake. Consume 195 grams of protein at 25% increments each day is one of the 3 eating rules I took away from Outlive. The other 2 eating rules are: don't eat within 3 hours of bedtime, because eating too close to sleep reduces sleep quality, and stick to an eating plan that keeps my average blood glucose in a safe range. For 1 week every few months, I will measure my blood glucose after I eat meals I typically eat with a simple drugstore glucose monitor. I'll take a glucose measurement at 30-minute intervals for up to 2 hours after each meal to see if what I ate is spiking my glucose levels above 160 on the meter, which would cause my insulin to spike, and see if my average glucose is above 100 on the glucose meter. If either is true, I will try eliminating certain foods, like refined carbohydrates, and adding more whole foods to my weekly eating plan. That was the core message that I gathered from Outlive by Peter Attia. I've made more highlights in this book than any other book I've read. I highly recommend this book to everyone. If you would like a 1-page PDF summary of insights that I gathered from this book, just click the link below and I'll be happy to email it to you. If you already subscribe to the free Productivity Game email newsletter, this PDF is sitting in your inbox. If you like this video, please share it. And as always, thanks for watching and have yourself a productive week.
Okay, wasn't that a brilliant explanation? 400 pages, he distilled into extended, TR, ATR, TRME program, especially with the emphasis on how to eat by Oliver. But, what's missing for most of us is exercise. We always talk about this program as exercise is a small proportion. Well, exercise is a small proportion for losing weight, but not when you're 60 and going on wanting to live to 100. Exercise is the most important factor. Okay, and it's resistance exercise. Okay, so I will give you the link to the one-page PDF if you want that. But when I look at my routine, and many of you have that kind of routine too, we do slow run. Okay, so that's your aerobic, that's your zone 2 training. Okay, below a certain pulse rate. We do SUP. Now, SUP, I just realized that all I need to do is I need to sprint for 4 minutes, rest for 4 minutes, sprint 4 minutes, rest 4 minutes, and that's 8 minutes. I do it 4 times 32 minutes. That is about the length of time from PA to constant wind. Okay, I can get my once a week VO2 max training. And of course, how do we get the strength training? Stairs with a 10-kilogram pack, up and down, that's like, or squats, okay, which is what we do. So we can pack that into our routine, and we can help and encourage people to do this.